Starting. I think we are live right now. This is Lucid of the Lucid Kitty with
Queso.
And just trying something new. Trying out the YouTube live streaming. Don't want to really get involved with Twitch because it seems like work.
For a sinking ship.
Well, that's Twitter, not Twitch.
We've heard some things about Twitch lately.
Well, that's not what this episode. One's about.
Yeah.
This episode is going to be about basically this tweet argument I got into with some person. I don't care, whatever. Well, you get to be on the screen. Good for you. About the canonicity of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. due to an offhanded remark I made about the fact that it has not been explicitly referenced to at all in the MCU.
Is canonicity a word?
Possibly. If it's not, it is now. If I had a graphic, it'd be like stamp. Lucid Kitty stamp, new word. But as someone, Queso, who has been watching the MCU over and over in your free time because you can.
It's comforting. And I need to be comforted.
I feel like, you would have at least a pretty current knowing of the fact of how little the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., any plot lines that have happened in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. being directly mentioned within the MCU.
Within the MCU, since Phil Coulson died, no. They do not mention it. In fact, they don't mention Phil Coulson again as if he were an alive being until Captain Marvel, but again, that was the 90s, so we're not saying Phil Coulson survived Loki's stabbing. They're just bringing him back for, nostalgia's sake, basically. Talking about MCU within Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that's a little bit different.
Well, they've always mentioned, that was always kind of a thing with Agents, was that they were always referencing things happening in the MCU, but it was never felt like it was like a big brother, little brother thing, right? That Agents was always chasing the MCU, but the MCU, only thing they ever got from them was Nick Fury.
Yep.
And that was the only thing they ever got from the MCU. And Sylph.
Maria Hill. Yeah.
Maria Hill. But even then, Maria Hill has not mentioned Phil in the main MCU.
No, she has not mentioned Phil. And they kind of like, I don't know if it was like a cover up, like just so that in case they go in different directions, because Feige wasn't 100% in charge at the time, I don't think. But they say in the beginning of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Phil says to Maria, "Don't tell him yet. I want to be the one to tell him I'm alive." But then they never see each other again. Right? Phil is never brought back, even though. And I'm quoting Nick Fury.
You mean Maria Hill's never brought back?
No, Maria Hill's been brought back into MCU. She showed up for multiple things. I just watched Civil War.
No, I'm saying she never got brought back to the Agents.
No, she did. Like periodically, she would come in.
But who do you mean never got brought back again?
So Phil says to her in like the first episode of the first season,
"Yeah,
don't tell him. I want to tell him myself." And then Phil is never introduced again to Tony or Cap or anything. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that's what I meant.
As far as Tony and Steve died, thinking that Phil Coulson is still dead.
Probably. We don't know. It was never confirmed.
Right. They never spoke about, hell, to be honest, they never even talked about the snapping, I don't even know what they call it now in the MCU, the blip, right? Whatever they call the dusting. But they never brought that up in Agents, and Agents still had a full season after Endgame.
And I think I've seen some people say on Twitter or something it was because they were in space, but I think people forget that
all of space got snapped.
Yeah, everywhere got snapped. That was not
a whole universe thing.
Yeah.
That was the reason Captain Marvel was not in the beginning of the movie, was because her very... There's a lot going on out here.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. So, yeah, no. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. never got confirmation within the actual MCU. Or even the Netflix shows from what I've seen so far. I finished Jessica Jones completely. They're never mentioned. Phil's never showing up there, even though, you know, he pops up for shit like that. I'm halfway through Daredevil. Have not heard anything about
that is exactly my point to that person, was that at this point we know something's canon because it has been explicitly referenced in the MCU, right? We now know that Spider-Man, that the Spider-Verse from Sony is canon because of No Way Home.
Yep.
Right? We because of She-Hulk, we now know that Daredevil, at least part of Daredevil, is canon to the MCU, right? But we don't have that for everyone.
No. And MCU, I just sped through these. COVID really got me to catch up again. I just sped through all the movies, and they're minus, like, of course, a few things. We're all human, but they're 98% of it. There is not a single bit that's not so meticulously planned. And when I say reference, I don't just mean like talked about or faces seen again. Everything has its own music. Everything has its own cues. In no way, shape, or form is it brought up.
Not at all. Like, Agents has very distinct sound. They have very distinct characters. There is at one point where there was rumored that 2 Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. characters would show up in Spider-Man No Way Home. Did not happen.
Didn't fucking happen.
Right? And it's almost, I guess, sort of worrying because I kept feeling that if there was anyone that was going to be brought up when we're dealing with multiverse stuff, it would be the first team in Marvel TV, Marvel live action to deal with time travel and to have dealt with dimension hopping.
And also the Darkhold.
I mean, that's a whole different conversation that really is more about talking about Scarlet Witch and people talking about how her being evil doesn't make sense.
Ugh.
Right?
I didn't even read the comics, but I'm not fucking stupid. You know?
Yeah.
I paid attention.
But that's just my point in terms of the fact that I don't want, because what annoyed me is that person was like, because what you want. And I was like, you don't know me. That's how I know you don't know me, because if you watch my stuff, you would have known that one thing I want more than anything is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to be canon.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So the sheer fact that you're saying that, like, oh, you wish the MCU wasn't canon, or you wish that Agents wasn't canon, it's like, no, I absolutely do, but there has not been anything that's shown me as someone who crawls through these properties, right, to see how they're connected, see what's coming up next, that has ever told me that Agents is even a thing.
Okay, so here's something that someone posted today. Not posted, like, on social media, but someone wrote an article about today. Granted, it's, like, TMZ-esque. Not TMZ themselves, but similar. But a lot of fans are speculating that Chloe Bennet, aka Daisy, is going to be coming back because she posted in an Instagram post today with daisies, like actual daisies, woven into her clothing.
That's such a stretch.
It is such a stretch.
It's such a stretch. Wow, I lost. This is like the first time I ever, well, like the second time I ever lost. I'm not paying attention. Because otherwise I would have smoked them.
Oh, okay.
But whatever. You don't even know. You should check out the other episode. Check out the other episode. You would have saw me win a bunch. You know, just over and over. But that's such a stretch, right?
What other episode? But yeah, no, it's a stretch. It's definitely a stretch. don't get me wrong, I would love it. Because if anyone to come back, I want it to be Daisy. Daisy and Phil and well, no, I'm lying.
If anyone I want to come back, it's Fitz and Simmons, right? Obviously Daisy because she's an Inhuman, but really I want Fitz and Simmons. Right, I think though to me, it very much feels like, but these two were the heart of the show. They were absolutely the entire heart of the show. Literally. Right, the show would not be nearly as good if it wasn't for their relationship. Right, feeling like it drove the team. Right. Oh, yeah. Right, so even here we're talking about, various evidence swung, right? But again, Feige doesn't deliver an answer, which it tells you. Yeah. Which tells you, like, he would have said something. We know the mutants are part of the MCU, right? Like, we got it.
Here's my thing with that. As we know, Kevin Feige, very calculated, right? That's why the last 10 years have been fantastic. I feel like there's a reason why he hasn't given a definite answer. I think the door is open for whenever, if he is ever ready to bring it back, he can.
Like, even here, it seems like the most... Sorry, go on.
No, that's pretty much it. That's my point.
Is the fact that, like... as Iman was basically says, like, isn't everything canon now? Like that's the closest we've gotten to anyone from the MCU talking about the TV shows. And someone's like, are the Marvel TV series canon? And she's like, isn't everything canon? Which I'm gonna take with a little grain of salt because she's just a fangirl. Like she's practically a fangirl herself.
And that was the girl that played
Miss Marvel. Yeah, so it's like she's still new. It's like how much does she know? Right, they're like, oh, she watched the show and believes it certainly has merit. Yes, like within the series, like there are they have plenty of openings to have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. be part of the MCU canon. Mm-hmm. But as I mentioned, like there has been no mention of Inhumans. None. Like the only mention we've ever gotten of Inhumans is Black Bolt, and that is from the Inhumans show, and that's even like wow, that's canon. Y'all consider that canon? Which is why they immediately killed him. Oh, right? Yeah. They immediately killed him after that. Like, because no one watched that show. No one watched Inhumans. Right? You want to talk about no one really watched. Nobody watched Inhumans. I don't think anyone made it past, like, the first episode.
I tried for Simon.
Yeah.
But that was it.
Yeah. Or the guy that played Simon.
Yeah, that's why I said Simon.
From Misfits. But I don't know, their main argument was the fact that it was like Kevin Feige, like at the very beginning they said that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is canon, right, from like this interview that he did at 2013. I was like, they just replaced Edward Norton as Bruce Banner. I don't think they knew what the fuck they were doing right then.
No.
Right, they were still figuring this thing out. Like we haven't made it all the way through, right? Like we haven't even. I don't think by that point was even Age of Ultron had happened yet.
I don't think so.
But I think that to automatically say that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is canon would be disappointing because
I mean they did time travel first.
Yeah, but I'm saying like it would just be set up to disappointment because Kevin did not vibe with those people. In fact,
Which
Matt, what was it? What is his name? Not Matt Murdock. Charlie Cox literally said that the Twitter fandom saved his job because the Disney they were axed. Daredevil, all that stuff, axed, gone. So the sheer fact it was like we don't even know if Jessica Jones is canon, right? Luke Cage is canon. Like those we have Daredevil in, but we still don't is this The same Daredevil? Is this the Daredevil that beat the snot out of Kingpin? Right? Right? Is this the same Daredevil, right? Is it the same one that fought Punisher? Does that mean Punisher is part of the MCU? I mean, we talk about him because that also kind of feels like he's popular, right? But did they really have plans to John Berthelot's Punisher to have him canon in the MCU?
What do you mean we talk about him? When was he ever mentioned?
Well, you just know that I think there's talks about the fact that he's going to be in it, but he hasn't been mentioned, right? Like She-Hulk was honestly at the first time the MCU, the greater MCU that fits into all of them, where the main Avengers are, mentioned any of the TV shows.
Nope, Hawkeye was.
What did Hawkeye mention?
Kingpin.
Oh, Kingpin. But those were remember, those were at the same time. They were practically in tandem.
They weren't the same time. Hawkeye came out when Spider-Man No Way Home came out.
Yes, but they were already filming She-Hulk, right? The minute that was the thing. Like, the reason why they were so quiet about Kingpin being in Hawkeye is because there was already talks about, like, oh, maybe they're bringing back Daredevil. Daredevil might be it. And the minute that Kingpin was revealed, it was pretty much confirmed. Oh, Daredevil coming back. Oh, Daredevil's probably going to be in She-Hulk, right? Like, they had to really keep that on their wraps because just simply Kingpin being mentioned is like, okay, yes, Daredevil is then canon, right? But all that stuff was happening at the same time. Remember, because of COVID, things were all thrown off, right? Things are showing way later than they should have been. So who really knows when She-Hulk and Daredevil were really meant to premiere around each other, because there were so many, like She-Hulk and Hawkeye were meant to premiere around each other because so many things were thrown around just in that year alone, right? Like we got 3 shows, and like 2 movies in 1 year, right? And that's why the next year felt so
spaced out
because we got so little stuff, or more like they kind of went back. They went back to the original showing, right? We just had a whole lot to do while we were in lockdown, or a whole lot to watch. But I mean, even though Kingpin and Daryl, those very much seem like things like, because even Kingpin, it was like, hey, bring him back. It was very much Twitter. Charlie Cox confirmed the Twitter, but I don't see that kind of love for agents, which doesn't tell, in the sense where it's all like, in the sense that it was with Daredevil, trying to get Daredevil canon, Agents doesn't have that necessary, Twitter love. Where to move the needle of showrunners, really Feige, to be like, okay, you know what? Let me, hey guys, throw in Fitz and Simmons in this movie. You know what I mean?
I feel like it's a lot easier to do Daredevil too, though. Much less content to tweak if need be. Less characters, because Karen fucked off and did Punisher, right? Karen's not really a part of it. Foggy, would love to see him back. I'm sure we would, but he wasn't like the main focus. It was really just Daredevil and his enemies, which his biggest enemy was Kingpin, at least from what I've seen so far. So Daredevil a lot easier than trying to work with 7 to 8 years worth of material that is so intricately woven, and if you bring in one, we should be seeing the rest at some point, you know what I mean? I feel like Daredevil is just easier to work with bringing back for a little bit versus someone from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Not that I don't want it, I would love it, but still.
I mean, I guess. I mean, I hear that. I just, as you said, like, because they have time hopped, practically, dimension hopped. They've been to hell, right? They have, or at least Ghost Rider's been to hell. Like I feel like it would actually be way easy to bring them, especially now. And that's my thing, is like when they mentioned, there's like, oh, well, now because everything's, time, like, we've only now recently gotten into the age of the multiverse where anything is possible, right? Again, like, No Way Home would not have been possible if we didn't spend all that time setting up things like What If and Loki, right? And being like, hey, multiverses, anyone from anywhere, right? that quote unquote fake out, which again I still don't believe is truly a fake out of Quicksilver.
No. It's not a fake
like
out.
that. Because again, because how you heard me earlier, when Xavier came out, that was the confirmation. And X-Men, Fox X-Men is canon.
Yep.
Right? They have their own universe. Right? We saw bald-headed Patrick Stewart.
Yellow ass.
Old Stewart, in his X-Men 98 chair.
Shit, what was I gonna say? Now, yes. Well, actually, we're kind of setting up multiverse with the first Doctor Strange.
Not really. Like they like you said, they say multiverse all over the place, but I don't believe they truly understood what the multiverse would entail, what they would entail for the multiverse. Right?
I don't know, man, because like watching Infinity Wars and shit with what's his name, Grimace, Thanos, in all the talks, but also like having recently watched Eternals again. There's so much more connection. Like I feel like he has been setting up a lot, and it may have been a small conversation, which it was a bald girl. I can't remember names.
The ancient one.
Thank you, the ancient one, talking about it. She does go into detail about it. Not so much the fact of that we have a laid out plan for multiverse, but we want to drop seeds. She does talk about it, and then like I was saying, Titan, Eternals. Mad Titan disease, blah 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 blah. There have been easy layouts for future stuff. I feel like we were setting up the multiverse fairly early on. It wasn't just No Way Home. I'm sorry, no, it wasn't just Loki and stuff. I feel like this was really.
Well, that's what I said. Like Wanda said, but I feel like they didn't really do it that much. Like and Endgame was really where they kind of started addressing the idea of even timelines, right? Because remember, even when they did that, there was still like the whole conversation between Hulk and the Chosen One was like, there are rules to this. We can't just do whatever we want. We get different timelines, and you know what I mean.
I wonder if she's interacted with the Time Police before, because she's so old, and able to do so much.
That would only be the case if the One Above All, or the not One Above All, the Immortus. If Immortus didn't viewed her as a threat, right? Remember, the whole point was that like the Immortus only went after people that would cause a timeline to cause King to emerge, and threaten his rule. If the Ancient One had nothing to do with that, if the Ancient One would never, be that, then has nothing to worry about. He wasn't necessarily, he didn't really care about power, about who had power. More about who had the power to stop him or change him. And even then, it was like, I'm in time. You can have the power, but if you're not worried about me, I ain't worried about you. That was very much his attitude. He's like, if you're not worried about me, I'm not worried about you. And if you're not worried about me, but you still affect me, I'm worried about you. So I don't think the Ancient One ever, I don't think that was ever the case for the Ancient One.
But yeah, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that's the part that irked me. Because I remember that interview. I remember seeing it because when I got into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I was like, shit, this is really good. I want this to be canon. And then we have, it's coinciding, the time frame is coinciding with Endgame. But yet, their time travel is completely different. Agents got their time travel from Enoch, bless his soul, versus Tony's quantum leap theories that worked. And I hated that because I was like, man, that really kind of pushes how much they're not canon.
It's more of how little conversation. It's very. That's why I got him annoyed. I'm like, it's very they're very different. We don't talk about We don't talk about Gravitron. We don't talk about the alien Krees. Right? Remember, space was invaded multiple times. And Agents.
Yeah, they had the Confederacy and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with the Kree, but that's never fucking mentioned MCU.
Right? The only time we talk about them is Thanos' invasion, but Earth has been invaded a few times. Right? Again, we had a whole global spanning event of Inhuman, basically their version of the Terrigen bomb, right? Because in the comics there's a Terrigen bomb that Black Bolt, I think it's either Black Bolt or his brother set off, right? And it basically turns all activates all Inhumans over the world. And we basically had the same thing with the fish oil going around and activating Terrigen in anyone that takes it.
Yeah.
Or Terrigenesis. The fact is, no mention of Inhumans or Terrigenesis or anywhere. And you can't say just, well, enhanced individuals. Like, yeah, remember, you want to talk about that? Back then, we were also calling mutants enhanced individuals. Scarlet Witch was not a mutant. She is a fucking mutant. Yeah. Right? There's no ifs ands about it. We've said it. We've said the mutant twice now. Mutant twice now in MCU. Miss Marvel and Black Panther 2. Right? We have addressed that these people... In fact, not only have we addressed it, we have turned an Inhuman into a mutant. Because Bruno confirms to Kamala that she's a mutant, right? He's like a mutation, which is... Right? We had to confirm she is no longer an Inhuman. She is now a mutant.
Yep.
Right? And Namor confirms that he is a mutant, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
if they're gonna bring that in the MCU, my thing is just I'm gonna stay hopeful because, like I said, I think Feige hasn't officially shut the door for that instance of being able to finally pull it in, if he ever wants to, but there's no strong correlation. Not on the MCU standpoint. We had a lot of conversation in the early seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Probably more so, honestly, just to bring ratings. Like, yeah, we're talking about what's happening in the movies, so watch the show.
Pretty much.
But storyline, like, it even starts to veer off after, season 3?
Yeah.
Because that's when Inhumans got introduced in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And we don't talk really too much about...
They stopped referencing things in the movies too. Like, we stopped having, like, every season almost the first seasons dealt with major events.
Yeah.
Right? They mentioned Avengers. They mentioned Dark World. They barely mentioned Dark World. But it's mostly like Avengers, right? How New York was invaded. Because I was like, all of season 1 was talked about that. It was like, oh, season 1, and then when Civil War happened, not Civil War, but Winter Soldier happened, a whole season about how Hydra dismantled S.H.I.E.L.D. Like the show was heavily affected by what was going on in MCU up till about the Ghost Rider season. And then Ghost Rider season is kind of where they stopped being affected by the greater MCU.
And it might be because they started going to California instead of New York. Because apparently, agent shit only happens in New York. But, but yeah, that is about the time they stopped talking about it. They don't mention anything again until the episode of the Gravitonium with General Talbot. And I don't remember much from it. I remember him turning on the TV for his son and them talking about Thanos. That's all I remember. But it was no mentioning of the snap, no mentioning of the stones, anything like that. And that's it. Which is, it's fine because I like that the show had enough merit to hold its own. It didn't have to mention the movies 24/7. But it also kind of lets you know it's not.
Well, I mean, they were ran by... I can't blame Feige for not caring much about what's happened on the TV stuff because it was ran by a guy where if he had his way, we wouldn't have Black Panther or Captain Marvel.
Yeah. So...
Right? I mean, if you look, even look at the TV shows, they're heavily, skew one hue, right? A certain hue tone, right? And we get one dude because he's like black and you just did it, you know what I mean? But everything else is very much, all the TV stuff is very white, Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest, I had no idea that Chloe Bennet was even Asian until the 3rd season.
Right.
Because we saw her mom. And then I looked it up and I was like, oh shit, she's actually...
like half Asian.
Yeah. Which is cool, but and nothing against her. I'm half Mexican. I can't say that my Mexican half is not valid. And I'm not saying that about her, but
it didn't feel like representation,
right?
At least from my point of view, but I can't say much because I'm not Asian, right? But that was never something that seemed to be heavily pointed out to, like I said, until her mother, which very much felt like a storyline thing, as opposed to like, okay, Daisy's half Asian, right? Chloe Bennett, you know what I mean? You're like, oh, she actually is.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. You know what I mean? I mean, that's cool that they actually got a half Asian girl to play a half Asian girl, right? I don't even know, honestly, I don't even know much about Chloe. Here, let me look up Daisy Johnson. Daisy.
But, like, I feel like the representation is there, but it's not. And I'm glad they hired her. I'm not saying anything against her. I would feel this way if they had put all the Mesoamerican people in Black Panther 2 being super light skinned. I feel like the representation's not fully there because they got a girl that's very white passing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I mean, to be honest though, I don't know if Quake is actually like has like anything has anything to do with it. Like, I don't know if she's actually like.
So they mentioned it just for Chloe, you mean? Like that was.
Yeah, I think like they might have like changed her mother's origin because I mean honestly, first thing, Calvin had a regular business relationship with a prostitute named Kim Johnson. You know, that's cool. Let's just change her mother into a leader. I'm fine with that.
Not even just a leader, it's a healer.
A healer. Let's just drop the whole prostitute, you know, line part.
Let's take her from Mary Magdalene to Mother Mary. Is basically what they did.
I would say Kim. I was like, what?
But that's also not.
Kim Johnson though is like, ooh, I don't even know.
Yeah.
But I do want things because here, if you want to remember, I want this. Director Johnson. That is what she's supposed to be.
And that's another thing. Fucking Phil Coulson was supposed to be director of S.H.I.E.L.D. after, Fury quote unquote died. Phil Coulson was supposed to be director, and then it got passed to Daisy for 2 seconds, and then it got passed to
Mac.
And that is also never mentioned in MCU. That's one of my biggest tells.
Yeah, Shield as far as like Shield seems to be non-existent
until like now.
I don't even know, like, when was the last time we mentioned Shield?
Well, I just got done with Captain Marvel, so of course it was mentioned there, but it's also the 90s.
Yeah, where they're still around.
Right. Endgame is where they're just strictly focusing on getting everybody back, but there's still the Avengers is not directly S.H.I.E.L.D. Because Nat and Cap all still live in the Avengers building, so I guess S.H.I.E.L.D. is not too much around. Which is that normal? Because I didn't read the comics. Does S.H.I.E.L.D. come back after the Hydra fall?
I don't know if that's a storyline in. I mean, Shield has problem. I mean, because we have the Secret Invasion. Like, we're gonna do Secret Invasion, and that was a problem with the fact is that, like, Tony was in charge of Shield at the time. Skrulls invaded the Earth, and Tony lost his position at Shield as director because of it, and they gave it to Norman Osborn. Yeah, right, and that's where the Thunderbolts come from. Right, so that's why we're seeing things in, like, they're kind of setting it up in Black Panther or like Black Panther 2, where Val kind of being like, taking over because she's head of the CIA now.
Oh yeah.
Ross's ex-wife, the one that's recruiting them all, right? Clearly, and we've already gotten confirmation from D23 that Thunderbolts is coming and she is going to be leading the Thunderbolts. So it becomes a thing of like how. Right, she's leader of the CIA. Does she become leader of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Oh, that's right, S.H.I.E.L.D. is back. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, power broker, Sharon Carter is in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D. now, and she's the power broker. That is the last time we got mentioned S.H.I.E.L.D. is that S.H.I.E.L.D. has been infiltrated by a bad person, by basically.
I wouldn't say bad, just self-interest,
self-serving.
Yeah,
but I don't know. We'll
see.
She was a leading criminal in Madripoor. Right, which is like criminal haven.
Okay, look, to be honest, if I busted my ass for my country and they wanted to make me America's Most Wanted because I helped out Captain fucking America do the right thing, by the way, at that point when he Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
If they want to do that to me, hell yeah, I'm going to be the fucking power broker in a foreign country where sanctions are low.
No, remember she got in. She got in trouble because she took their stuff back for the Civil War fight. So I'll stand by it. Steve was wrong in that situation, but whatever. Go on.
Yes, Steve was wrong, but she also was a part of S.H.I.E.L.D. her entire life. Her aunt being fucking Peggy Carter.
Yeah, no, she
so
was
her idolization of Steve, you know, like, of course she thought she's doing the right thing.
I mean, she also made out with him, but
which is weird.
Which is, we're not going to talk about the fact that she was, definitely was making out with him, but
crush on her aunt's love.
But like your aunt died as Spencer over this man.
No, she got married.
Did she? Oh, that's right, she did get married.
Yeah.
Right, because in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I mean, in Agent Carter, we do meet that dude from out of. Oh, and then we brought, like you said, like the TV shows even mention each other because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. mentions Peggy Carter by bringing in what's his name from the show.
Yep.
From Out of Time.
Yep.
Right, like so it's like they have plenty of ways to mention that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is canon to MCU and have not taken the opportunity to do so.
Yep.
So I don't know. That's just where I stand in that. Like I want it to be canon. I do not believe it's canon.
Yeah.
Until I'm given a reason, right? Until I hear their theme. Until May. Right? They still have. She's still under contract. Disney still owns that woman, right? She's their Asian lady.
Mulan
right?
2, the remake.
Like just
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And then now Star Wars, whatever.
Like come on, like just give us Melinda May, right? Give us the Cavalry, right?
We got rid of Black Widow, so bring her in, you know.
Well, I mean, her sister's replacing her.
I know it, but she's working with fucking Elaine.
But I mean, like, bring in the two, bring in their daughter, like, have her be a teenager now working with them. Right, spoilers. I don't know how you haven't seen Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. yet. Bring back Fitzsimmons.
You've had years.
Bring us Fitzsimmons, right? In fact, if the cartoons have considered Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. canon before the MCU has, as Fitzsimmons have literally been in Spider-Man, right? They were in one of the Spider-Man cartoons as themselves.
Yep, the characters, but also the voice actors, like, or the actors, the way the voice works. But yeah.
So I think if they wanted canon, they would be canon, and I don't know if it's because like Inhumans or stuff like that, because it seems like they might be trying to wipe Inhumans, kind of like wipe them away, right? Kind of like we don't talk about them. But
that one show is awful.
Yeah, honestly, it will, because at first the thing about the Inhumans and X-Men is a whole thing, because it was about the fact that like Marvel was trying to screw X-Men, trying to screw Fox, because they had X-Men, so they were trying to basically kill the comic line, to kill the IP, to weaken the IP of the X-Men, for Fox. And by doing that, they were thus trying to basically replace them with the Inhumans. That never really stuck. People really didn't seem to like Inhumans kind of replacing the mutants.
Because it's so confusing. Because weren't mutants caused by aliens as well?
I mean, everyone was kind of caused by, that goes all the way back to the beginning of, like, the origin of... of supers, right? Where you have basically where the Eternals come from and where the Deviants come from, and then the in between is everyone else, right? The in between is everyone from mutants to Bruce Banner, right? Bruce Banner being able to get hit by gamma rays and not turn into a hulking mass of tumors, right? So
is he a mutant?
He's not a mutant, but what the Celestials did was basically when they were doing their whole experiments of like Eternals, Deviants, and humans, and the humans were in the group, there were some humans that were given basically a gene, right? That basically would lead to superpowers later in, like, you know, in time, and you know things like certain people just have a propensity where it's like I said, someone gets hit by gamma rays, instead of turning into a giant cancer man, you turn into the Hulk, right? People, mutants start coming along, you know, certain people generations down the line just get born with power or develop powers over time. But then the Kree came along and started experimenting on humans, and then that's where the Inhuman gene came from. Was from the Kree experiments on humans,
which also the MCU has never talked about either.
Right? They talked about the Kree, but they've never
several times.
Right? That's from the Thanos invasion, but they never talked about the fact that, you know, people have been
not even like we just got done dealing with the Kree with Captain Marvel, which was 1995. It almost seemed like the Kree almost never come to Earth.
Right? But clearly, you know, based on the Inhuman storyline, if it's still canon or it's still a thing, I mean, I don't know if they wiped them out from the comics, but they are the Kree have been here. The Kree have been here and have experimented on Inhumans. Right? So, you know, so
yeah, I don't think that they're going to be, at least not right now. They're not going to be canon.
Yeah. I mean, what sucks, but I know that, like I said, that conversation was just sparked by someone that was like so sure that because it was mentioned once years ago, like over like 10 years ago, that it was like, yeah, no, that's correct. And I was like, dude, so much has changed in the MCU. You know what I mean? And at this point, I'm going on the stance that if it was a TV property, it needs to be explicitly referenced, right? If it's a TV movie, if it's a property that was not part of Marvel Studios,
yeah,
right, making it that Marvel Studios logo, right? Because I don't think the Netflix shows had the you know, the thing that they do in front of the movies, right?
Not the same in front of the movies, but they have the Marvel Studio logo.
Like they have Marvel Studio logo, but there's but it was like, no, what they had was the Marvel logo, I think, right? We have to go back, but like, right? They would have the Marvel logo, but Marvel Studios, because Marvel Studios wasn't always a thing.
Yeah, no.
Marvel Studios came about, like, I think after like Avengers 2. Or it was like after like Iron Man 2 or something.
Yeah, because it was Paramount for. So I noticed that recently. It was Paramount for Iron Man 2, Thor, and then after that, I believe it was Marvel Studios.
Because Disney bought them. Because that was after Disney bought them and then gave them their own studio. Mm-hmm. Right? But up until that point, right? Even when they were doing the TV shows and they bought them, and even then, like at first, it still wasn't Marvel Studios. It's still like, you know, Marvel Disney. Right? And then it was like, I think only like a little, because they were still doing the TV shows, right? And there's still a very separation. Marvel Studios was the movies, right? And only now Marvel Studio includes the TVs because of Disney Plus, and you can see by the openings, right? Yeah. They have the same Marvel Studio opening. In fact, not even that was the 10-year anniversary, I believe. Like they started doing the 10-year anniversary stuff, right? Opening, right? Because it's gone through changes.
I watched the first Black Panther like yesterday, and they changed the opening for that one too. It made me cry.
Yeah, right. But you know, and things that they could do post-mortem, you know what I mean? Because I don't think it was like that beforehand when he was alive. Not. But they changed it when, you know, in passing. Honestly, I've been seeing that more too. Like they did that with Kevin Conroy with certain Batman properties. Yeah. Where at the end they'll put R.I.P. Kevin Conroy, which is obviously something that wasn't there before. Right. Right. But they've been changing it on HBO Plus, I believe, or HBO Max, whatever. But yeah, no. So Marvel Studios, if it's not explicitly Marvel Studios, it needs to be referenced to be considered canon. And even then, it's like, is it? We don't know. Is Daredevil canon, or are they just part of the universe? Right? Mm-hmm. Is Karen canon? Is Foggy canon? Is the Night Nurse canon? Right, Rose? Right?
Oh, I hope so.
Right? Like,
I
are
love
all
her.
like do we like are all these people still part of like the MCU, or are they just Luke Cage? Right? Like, just because we have Daredevil doesn't mean Luke Cage is canon. It doesn't mean Jessica Jones is canon. Right?
I hope she is canon though.
Yeah, no, they were great, but they still have to. We can't just go off the fact that, like, well, someone at one point said they were part of the MCU, but we never, ever, ever mention a guy that's literally able to take over the minds of people by just speaking.
Which you feel like they would. I feel like that's a pretty big threat.
Right.
You know? At least for Spider-Man.
Because we're getting all types of references and stuff now, like in She-Hulk. She-Hulk was full of little things like, hey, you notice this thing, you notice this thing, you notice this thing, you notice this thing, right? So we could have easily gotten drops of references to different shows just to be like, oh yeah, that thing is not only canon, but it's happening now, right? That thing's are related or it happened before, right? Like even when they mention Harlem, they're very specific about mentioning Harlem in an Incredible Hulk, right? They're very specific about how they talk about it.
You mean in Avengers?
In all of them, right? Whenever they talk about the first one, because it's Edward Norton, right? So they ever do is kind of mention that, like, I messed up Harlem, I destroyed Harlem, but they don't mention Harlem. Betty. He's never once mentioned Betty.
You mean his wife?
No, the girl he's in love with, which would eventually at some points be his wife. But yeah, Betty, you know what I mean? That's
they never talk about
but
that.
But in every Hulk movie, you can't have a Hulk movie without Betty Ross. You can't have a Hulk story without Betty Ross. At least not like classic Hulk, right? So the fact is that, like, at no point has Mark Ruffalo ever mentioned Betty. Ever mention, like, I have a boo. Even with Thunderbolt Ross, while he was alive, because maybe it's the same man, and I think they're gonna be replacing him, because he has to, he has to be Red Hulk at some point. But the fact is, he passed away when he was alive. At no point did they ever have him mention his daughter.
Yeah, I feel like that would be important.
Right? Like, at no point did he talk to, he's like, that guy, the big green guy that keeps chasing after my daughter. Right? He wants to hunt my daughter. Like, no point does he ever mention Betty Ross.
I can't imagine Mark Ruffalo being that type of person. He's like a puppy.
Right? But but we never mention the fact that, like, it's always very cool. Yeah, I destroyed Harlem. Well, yeah, Harlem is bad. Harlem's mad at me.
Last time I was here, I broke Harlem.
Right. And then with fucking and in fact, like, that was like little bits. Like, She-Hulk was the most confirmation that Incredible Hulk was canon. As opposed to just being like, oh, maybe it's just different. Like, oh, nope. Same guy, same Emil, right? So we use the same Emil, right? The same actor,
all the same information,
right? That then fine then, right? And which again, as you heard me, like, it kind of disappointed me because that told me, I'm like, all right, I guess that's canon, which means no chance of Edward Norton probably ever coming back as Bruce Banner, because if this is the same universe,
that's a 616,
right? If they is the same universe, and Edward Norton turned into Mark Ruffalo, and it's not just a different universe, right? I mean, I hold up hope. Maybe Edward Norton could be. I would love for him to be Maestro from a different universe, right? A Hulk that that did Professor, like, Smart Hulk, but it also is more Hulk than. Lame-o, right? Where he's like, you sadden me. Smack the hell out of Mark Ruffalo's Hulk. Where he's all like, you're weak, right? Because if you look at the Incredible Hulk, that Hulk was a monster, right? Like, I keep looking like.
Hello, Ferrigno.
Like this.
To be fair, the Mark Ruffalo one looks better.
But you also got to think
Where
about
is
how
he
much.
buying those pants?
But you got to think about how much older it was, right?
I know.
Right? You know what I'm talking about? Better like this. Like this is what this is what Abomination used to look like.
Yep.
Right? And this is what he looks like in the movie, right? Like he doesn't look for the time. He looks good. This was again around Iron Man, right? This came out like the same year as Iron Man. Like,
is Lou Ferrigno still alive?
Maybe.
Can we get Lou Ferrigno too?
Honestly, I think he was in the Incredible Hulk movie.
Really?
Like I think he had cameoed in this movie.
Because that's the one I cannot get on Disney Plus. I haven't seen it.
Right.
I'm gonna be honest, I have not seen it besides little clips.
But this Hulk was a force.
He looks nothing like Edward. I like the fact that our Hulk
looks like Mark.
Yeah.
But that was before the technology, right? You got to think of how this separation in those years, right?
That is true.
Like this was one of the first MCU movies, and we didn't get Mark Ruffalo till Avengers. So we've already had Iron Man 2.
They wanted
by
to
the
put
time
as
we
much
got
space in between this movie and then when they're gonna bring him back.
Well, remember, none of the other movies ever referenced another hero, right? Avengers was the first time they did was a team up. Right now, we're so used to like, oh yeah, some of this one, Doctor Strange is in a Spider-Man movie, yeah. Wanda's in a Doctor Strange movie, yeah, right. Like we're used to that now, but Avengers was the first time any other Marvel character besides these two, besides Incredible Hulk and Iron Man, because the Tony Stark showed up at the end of the Incredible Hulk to talk to Thunderbolt Ross, right? To talk to about hey, basically about the Avengers initiative, right? To try to get his hands on the Hulk.
So did Iron Man come out first and then
Yes.
Hulk? Okay.
It was Iron Man, but like the Hulk came out like literally the same year. A few months later.
Filmed it at the same time.
Yeah, they came out a few months later, but that's the thing. Like they were just filming these movies, trying to get them to go, and they had like a small idea, as you can see at the end of the Incredible Hulk. They're like, maybe there might be a team up later, right? As you saw with these, but they're also like, if we don't get it, we don't get it. Yeah. And then this is the first time we got him, but I absolutely believe they would have done the same with Edward, right? If he lasted that long. They would have absolutely changed his face to make it look like it, but I'm just talking about like the muscle definition, like the way he fights, the way he, versus, the way he fights versus the way the Hulk fights. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like,
is he trying to snap the neck of Abomination right now?
Absolutely. And Betty has to be like, he's like, stop, Bruce.
Bruce, people are watching. Or he becomes a guru of sorts.
A guru, and it's all like a fucking polyamorous cult leader, right?
Was he working with someone at the end of She-Hulk?
Yeah, well, he wasn't married. He got hired by the Hulk King. By that loser, but he didn't realize that he was, he got hired from some basically douche bro convention. He just thought he got hired to do his motivational speaking thing.
Oh yeah, and
right?
then Wong breaks him out of jail though. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, Wong breaks him out of jail at the end because he was transforming, and he was like, "Oops, oh, right, I wasn't supposed to be transforming." But I've been moonlighting as an abomination for inspirational talks. Yesterday was the cancer patients. You know what I mean? My bad.
I feel like as long as it's not doing anything, it should be fine.
I mean, I get it. I mean, he broke Harlem.
He broke Harlem.
He broke Harlem.
He
definitely tried to kill a lot of people, and definitely did kill a lot of people. It's like, you know what? Don't ever do that again. Right? The Hulk is looking, that was the whole thing. He's like, you're lucky we let you ever do this again. Only reason he's like, you either had to run away or join the Avengers. Because that was the whole thing about the Avengers, is that the beginning of it, they were hunting him. right? Is Scarlet Witch was hunting, not Scarlet Witch, but Black Widow was hunting him.
Not necessarily. She was interrogating someone, and then the threat happened, and then Coulson calls her and says, "You get the big guy." And she talked about how she doesn't want to talk to Tony. He's like, "No, I got Tony. You get the big guy." And that's when she goes to find him and talk to him to bring him into Avengers, but they weren't hunting him.
He called out. He's all like, "Those guys out there can't stop me." Like, that was his whole point. Where he was like, "Come on," because it was like, because that was the whole thing. He's all unassuming. Mark Ruffalo is all like, he's like, "Do you really want to do this with me?" He's like, "Those, like, you have a lot of men out there. I'm pretty sure they want to go home, right?" And she's like, "All right, I don't want to do this with you. Can we talk?" So,
I know you like Edward Norton, but I love Mark Ruffalo's
I'm not
almost pathetic portrayal of Bruce Banner versus Hulk. I kind of love it.
I say I don't hate it, but a lot of people like Hulk fans don't like, because they did basically neuter Hulk by definition, just by extension of Mark Ruffalo's character, like who he is as kind of an actor, right? Energy pulls off. At least the energy they have him put into the Bruce Banner role. Professor Hulk is very neutered, very there's so much depth and struggle, right? That I feel like Edward Norton really embodied with that movie, right? That the depth and struggle it is to be the Hulk, right? Now it's always kind of felt like, ever since the whole, "That's my secret, Captain, I'm always angry," we've never really seen, the most we saw him struggle was Infinity War, when Hulk refused to fight because he got his ass kicked, right? And then he's like, "Then I had to go on a hiatus and go to Mexico and combine them so I can actually use my fucking Hulk form," right? But Edward Norton's Hulk was all about the fact that so much focus was done on the fact of the heartbeat counter, right? The fact that he was constantly trying to control his heartbeat and being chased and being shot at and having to stop and be like, and have to try to calm himself, because he's "I'm gonna turn into the Hulk and I'm gonna kill these people who are trying to kill me, by the way, but I do not want to kill them. So I have to literally do parkour through fucking Brazil. I think it was Brazil or Colombia, right? I have to literally do parkour through the slums of Colombia just so I don't turn into the Hulk and murder a bunch of people, right?
I know.
And accidentally murder and go through a rampage through the goddamn these slums and destroy the city, destroy these people's homes and stuff and kill people, right? There was and we just didn't really get that. We would get that. I feel like we get that sunset where she changes. Not even, no. We Age of Ultron. I feel like the only time we really got that, and that was because Wanda got in his head, right? But there was never that I cannot be the Hulk because I cannot control the Hulk.
Well, I mean, they kind of showed that with after Age of Ultron, when he just dipped so Hulk can Hulk out nonstop.
Even then, that's
okay. What was I gonna say? They also gave him essentially 3 years from Harlem to Avengers to kind of get his shit together.
But that's the problem, is that that whole getting your shit together is some of the best part of Bruce Banner and the Hulk, is that struggle.
But they can't give him his own movie. I do hope.
Well, we're getting the World War. We're getting the. That's the thing. We're supposed to be getting this kind of theatrical. I think they're trying to. I think they're going to be doing something like they did with Justice League, the Zack Snyder one, where they had 4 showing, where they had basically 4-hour episodes, that all culminate to just one giant movie. That is supposed to be one giant movie, not a show, but I think that's what they're trying to do, because they want to. Because I think that's how they're getting around it, is that it's a show, but they're gonna do limited theatrical releases, right? So it's still technically a movie, but it's really a show. So it's you're seeing through a 5-hour movie,
yeah, right?
But because it's being released that way on the TV, I think they get around the contract with Universal of it being a Hulk movie. Yeah. So it's a Hulk show that got a theatrical release. which I don't know. I don't know if I want to sit through 5 hours in a theater.
Not in the theater. I'll watch it at home.
But sucks because I would want, because if of any of them to see large, you gotta see a Hulk movie large.
Yeah,
that's gonna be like we just saw right here with that little screen. We're like, man, that's you're right. To see
I mean,
that,
when they break it up, because no one's gonna be able to sit through 5 hours.
they did that with the they did that with the Justice League. They had a unlimited theatrical release, I believe. Maybe I might be wrong, but it was successful in a sense.
Because I don't want to. I couldn't drink anything for the whole day.
Well, things like that. What they would do is then intermissions. Do they do
intermissions?
I absolutely guarantee you that there would be an intermission. At least like after one of them, after like 2 of the episodes or whatever, 2 of them they would put an intermission in.
Yeah, because I'm gonna have to go pee, man. I have to bring pillows and a blankie, and then I'll fall asleep because I'm an old lady. Oh, that's a long time in the theater.
No, but
I'm not gonna lie though, I didn't see a big difference between how they made him fight besides the stabbing. But I think that's more the limits of Disney versus, and not so much.
I'm not so much a fight, but one of the gritty, like he just, because he also doesn't fight anyone that's like comparable. Like he fought Thanos and they got his ass whooped, right? And so even then they kind of like, man, they kind of really punked out the Hulk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the Hulk's like this scene was brutal.
Yeah, I remember you showing me that.
Right, just that kick, and you're like, oh, God, Hulk just has no fucks given.
Yeah, that's like the one thing I did not understand, because Hulk is definitely stronger than Thanos. At least from everything I've seen so far.
He can be stronger. What I'll say is that, like, at least this Hulk, I'll give it that. Maybe I'll even say it. Like, if they could bring back Edward Norton, this Hulk is kind of a pussy. He's kind of a punk, right? Where I feel like this Hulk has been so used to fighting people who are weak, below him, that the minute someone can, like, not fist fight, but like Thanos had hands. That was not just thing. Thanos had hands, right? Hulk will go in for a swing. He's like block, ba 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 ba, body shot, ba ba ba. Oh, duck under, ba ba, pick you up, drop. Thanos had hands for the Hulk.
But also, like, if you look at Thor Ragnarok, Thor would have won that fight.
Oh yes, Thor absolutely would have won. So again, it's another case of like, it does feel like this Hulk is not nearly as, battle heavy, battle ready. While Edward Norton's Hulk felt like a Hulk that was ready to like go to distance. You know what I mean? Because even with Avengers, right? With Avengers, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., this is a big strong dude going against little guys, right? Yeah. He's jumping around, smack, jump, smack, smack, right?
But then also, like in the first Avengers, that gigantic flying worm.
Yeah, he was able to punch it out, but even then, it was still like, that's like momentum. That's like... That's like a car. I mean, not a car, but like a train. That was a train, and the Hulk like punched the train. The train's gonna stop. You know what I mean? The thing had moving momentum. It was in the air. That thing had way more reason to stop than the Hulk had to move, right? But I'm talking about when you see him fighting like Emil. Emil had hands, right? Emil was a military. He's a military soldier. He had hands for him. Right, as soon as he transformed, right, when Emil was in his form, right, he was hard to fight, right, because he moved around a lot.
Yeah, he did. Like a snake.
Oh, there's a Hulk game.
Like a sneaky snake.
I feel like
that's why I think it's
like the Hulk. I have to see the Hulk movie.
2003, that's gotta be it.
I don't even know if that's it. Like it's like so hard because like
2003. Yeah. What the fuck is that? What is that? Who is that little doughboy?
Like, I mean, like, it's like 2003, so you can't be like, yeah, you tried, you get it, you tried. But it's all like,
who played him? I still refuse to believe this was a real movie.
Oh, it was real. They had Hulk dogs. They turned dogs into like these Hulkling chupacabra things.
I like that they gave Mark Ruffalo's a little bit of chest hair. I do like that. There's a tiny bit of chest hair. I'm like, that feels right.
But even then, like, look at him. Like, you see, like they did better on the face.
Way better.
Right? Because of technology. But the body, they let the body go. Right? They let the body go compared to, like, you know, Ruffalo's Hulk. Like I said, who felt like a fucking monster. Right?
Yeah.
But
Are we not recording?
yeah, they put on the video, and at some point, like, the stream got cut off.
When?
I have no idea, but my stream been blocked.